Welcome to Registered, the podcast of the Catholic Register, where we'll be taking a look at the stories that graced all of our platforms over the past week. I'm Mickey Conlon, editor of the Register, alongside reporters Luke Mandato and Quinton Amundson. This week's episode is brought to you by Connaissance Travel and Tours, your trusted Catholic-owned and operated Canadian expert in transformative pilgrimage tours. Visit connaissancetravel.com. And Connaissance is going to play a very big part in this week's edition of Registered because, of course, they arranged and were a partner with the Archdiocese of Toronto and their pilgrimage, the Jubilee pilgrimage to Rome, which lucky Quinton got to, as even though he's not a member of our Archdiocese, he still tagged along and had a little bit of fun with the folks, about 110 folks who joined Cardinal Francis Leo, our Archbishop, and of course Neil McCarthy, our communications director of the Archdiocese. And I'm going to basically shut up about this, and I'm going to let Quinton tell us how things go.
Thank you very much, Mickey. I am so grateful that Liz and Vincent from Connaissance gave the invitation over a year ago, and we were able to confirm that they'd be very interested in the Register coming along to experience and capture this pilgrimage, the People's Pilgrimage in Rome with Cardinal Leo. So I got to be with the pilgrims as they went for the four major papal basilicas, experienced the tomb of St. Francis, St. Clare, and St. Carlo Aquitas in Assisi, and getting to go for the catacombs where 500,000 of the early Christian martyrs were buried. And those were just among of the many experiences. And you just said spiritually transformative in your intro, Mickey, and I think that's what, on the whole, these pilgrims were able to receive. They got the tranquility and greater spiritual clarity that they were seeking. So just a couple of snapshots. The first couple that I spoke to, Wilford and Jean Guthrie, Thunder Beach, Ontario, celebrating their 45th anniversary this December. They were told by a deacon friend that you will come back home spiritually transformed by this trip. And it was beginning to happen just within the first full day. They told me that it was the papal audience with Pope Leo, and then the Mass celebrated by Cardinal Leo in the St. Peter's Basilica, and they were moved to tears several times. It was already starting to take shape within the first full day, and it only got more and more powerful as they had more of these experiences. And a lot of them, like Wilford and Jean, were retirees. But there were some younger groups, younger pilgrims. It was nice to hear from them. A guy that I really got to know well, Louis Benedetto, were the two pilgrims that were repping the early 30s age group. And he really told me something interesting about why young people really should be seeking these experiences out. And I'm just going to read a quote from him. We, especially, let's say, someone who lives in the city and has a stressful job, as a lot of young people do in today's day and age, a very connected job, I needed to get away. It's just been 3 days and my mind is so much clearer. I'm not ready to go back yet, but when I do go back, I'll be ready to work and be focused on work from that perspective. You come back rejuvenated and a different person. So many people really reflected sentiments like Louis, and also our former YSN writer who I met in the flesh, Paula Ducepac. We were walking the streets of Assisi, and she really talked about the tranquility that this gave her after a tumultuous few years. She was very open about that, and it's amazing how it really took flight in a lot of people, the tranquility that they were seeking.
That sounds amazing, Quinton. And it sounds like through a packed itinerary, people were very present and were very mindful of, like you said, that spiritual awakening and that transformative experience that was offered to them. One of the things I thought was interesting, and you had talked to me about this privately, actually, when you had returned, is how many people were interested in attending just to be in the presence of Archbishop Cardinal Leo, and what a special thing that he was going to be attending as well. So maybe talk to us a little bit about how he was throughout this pilgrimage and just how he was present with his people there during that time as well.
Thanks, Luke. Yeah, I'd say that so many of these pilgrims had such a high level of admiration for the Cardinal already. And I could say with confidence that at the end of the week, that admiration would have only gone upward and escalated during the week because he was so present, not only celebrating five masses in some of the most beautiful churches in the world, but he was present at so many of the activities. Like he walked the streets of Assisi and did some of the pilgrimage stuff. He ate with different pilgrims each night at dinner, accommodated so many different photo requests. And notably on the final night, he was receiving requests throughout the week to speak about his conclave experience. And he really shared some intimate and personable thoughts for almost 20 minutes. So he was really trying to go out of his way to make it special, whatever way he could.
Well, those are some very nice words you're sharing about Cardinal Leo, and words of thanks, obviously, for what he did during this excursion, this pilgrimage that you took part in. I And besides the Cardinal, I know you'd like to thank Connaissance and some of the others. Who else that was there that were a real help to you and to all the other pilgrims?
I think on behalf of the pilgrims, I want to take opportunity with the platform that we have to recognize some of the MVPs on the ground. And I mean, there were many. I mean, Liz and Vincent from Connaissance Travel and Tours, along with their associates, Shiv, Dawn, and Kayla. I mean, they're not only a Catholic tour company in terms of the faith-driven pilgrimages that they put together, they are also Catholic in their servant leadership. I mean, Liz and Vincent were just there to accommodate every guest question and concern with just this desire to be helpful. And it was just very impressive and noticeable what they did behind the scenes with the logistics. Neil McCarthy, the communications director, but he is really the on-ground extraordinaire for the Archdiocese at so many of these things. He just is so good at communicating the instructions, and he is just totally centered and willing to step up in whatever way he can. Emmanuel Pires, not only is he great in capturing the photographs, many of which graced our print edition this week, but he was very key in coordinating and shepherding people from one location to another. Michelle Dabrowski, same thing, did some coordinating work, but also used her musical talents in leading us through the liturgies at many of these masses. And Father Tim Hanley, the chair of the Archdiocesan Committee, just very inspiring with the spiritual leadership that he provided throughout the week. And he was just also very gregarious. I sat with him at dinner one night, just very gracious, and a guy that you want to have there. In addition to the Cardinal drawing a lot of people to this pilgrimage, a lot of people were former parishioners or current parishioners of Father Tim. So he was one of those magnetic forces that was certainly able to animate a very good week. And I guess one final, reflection, it was very notable. Cardinal Leo, throughout the week, his name, Francis Leo, and we spent a lot of time in the company of Pope Leo the 14th, and we also spent a lot of time with St. Francis of Assisi. It was definitely very notable that the links to both of those two figures that the given and surname of our cardinal in Toronto has to people that very loomed large in the minds and the hearts of our pilgrims in Rome. So it was absolutely incredible. It was amazing to be there, and I think it's going to have a very transformative effect for the pilgrims and myself in the days and the weeks and the months to come. Thanks for allowing me to share my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks very much, Quinton. That's eye-opening, and it's great to hear it on this platform as well and share that with some of our listeners. For people tuning in this week that were able to catch our episode last week, you may have also realized that Mickey's back here as our host. Mickey was absent last week when it was Peter Stocklin and I giving last week's episode. Why don't we take a quick second here, Mickey, and let the people know where you were last week as Quinton was filing from the streets of Rome.
Well, I actually was in Rome a few days before Quinton and the and the Archdiocese pilgrims. So that was totally unplanned. It's just something that my wife put together. We started in Rome, and then we did a little tour of the Italian and French Riviera, and ended up in Barcelona. We took a cruise, and as I said, it was totally it was a last minute thing. We my wife arranged it. Oh, probably about 3 weeks before we left, but it was quite spectacular, and my first time in Rome. And I know, Quinton, you've been there before. You were there for the Cardinal's elevation, I know. So very impressive, very impressive city. I didn't get to see as many sites as I'd like there, because we were only there for 2 days before we headed off. But of course, we got to the Vatican museums, and unfortunately, our tour, which was supposed to take in the St. Peter's Basilica, well, we were told about 2 days before, says, that's not going to be able to happen, because we had a morning tour, and there was Jubilee events going on that ended up canceling our trip into St. Peter's. They said, you can try and get in, but you're on your own. Well, we got there, and man, was that lineup absolutely huge. And my wife just says, no, we've been on our feet for about 3 hours right now. I'm not spending another hour in a line. So we went and got ourselves a pizza. Of course, you do what you do in Rome. So, but it was interesting reading, because, of course, Quinton was posting on our website, CatholicRegister.org, throughout the pilgrimage, and some of the places that they were going. And of course, Trevi Fountain was one of them. And that was we were only staying about 3 blocks away from that, so it was a nice sight to see. And also the Spanish Steps were just a little jaunt away from there, and again, absolutely fantastic. The cathedral at the top, and for the life of me, I can't recall the name of it. So I just know that I have every intention, from just that short little sweet taste of Rome, that I'd love to get back there. So, and well, and I'm sure, Luke, we're hoping you'll be able to tell us about your excursions to Rome one day. Being the Italian among us, like, that's part of your birthright. You're supposed to go there. Any
I've got to be next, right? Yeah, if Quinton's gone and Mickey's gone, I think maybe a registered complete trip to Rome is in the works, at least somewhere down the line. And I'd be the first to come back, and I'd probably say how great it is as well. So that's great, Mickey. I think I said to our listeners last week that Mickey Conlon was out and enjoying some much-deserved downtime last week. Would that line up with your week abroad last week?
Well, I'd say there was it was enjoyable. Downtime, I'm not sure, because from when we went to Rome. Then, of course, we hopped on our ship. We cruised, as I said, the Italian Riviera, French Riviera. The one thing is, everywhere you went, you could not miss. There was churches absolutely everywhere. It's like there'd be one church here, and 3 blocks away there'd be another church. And so every trip we did, much of it was focused on seeing these absolutely beautiful churches that, hundreds of years old. And in Florence was absolutely fantastic going there. In fact, my wife had been to Italy before, and had always said, Florence was her favorite city. And I can't not agree with it, from what I saw there. Unfortunately, we couldn't get into the cathedral, because it was okay. Well, we're here for only so long, and if you want to go in, but you're going to be waiting about an hour in line. So our tour guide put us on to the Santa Croce, which was about a 10, maybe 15-minute walk away, which was absolutely spectacular. And in her eyes, she liked it even better than the cathedral in Florence. And so it had so much history in it. It's the place where Michelangelo's tomb is, where Galileo's tomb, Marconi, uh, Machiavelli. And it's just, it was incredible just how many. So, and it was a spectacular. And there's just like most of the churches everywhere we visited, had scaffolding all around it. So, it just shows you that these, hundreds and hundreds of year old churches, they need to be refurbished all the time. And good on the Italians, the French, where we went there as well. And of course, we ended up in Barcelona to see the Sagrada Familia too. And of course, that's been under construction for well over 100 years. And we've been told that it's about 28 years before it's going to be officially finished, but we'll see. But it kind of shows that, you think that you always hear Christianity's dying. Well, it's like, no, they just keep refurbishing it everywhere. And you see it in these churches. It was just beautiful to see. So I was really, really pleased. And whenever I go on vacation, the one thing I always do is check out the churches because say you're in Ireland or I remember we were in Russia one time even, and we went and saw this beautiful Orthodox cathedral, and it's just they're spectacular, and they're kind of hubs for these cities, these ancient cities. So it looks good on the faith, everywhere, and of course we've been doing stories about that, how the faith after it's had little rough spots, and now people are coming back to the church, and we're seeing, especially the young folks. So that really, really nice to see. So
amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. We joke all the time, Mickey, about doing anniversary stories for churches here in Toronto and in Ontario about it being, it's a 25th anniversary, 50th anniversary. You go over there to Italy and France, we're looking at hundreds of years for these churches, and sometimes, like you said, hundreds of years just in construction, being refurbished. So it's great to hear.
Yeah. So, but it's while we were off Jeff's heading, there was someone that stayed here and was keeping his hand on what's going on in Canada. So I know as I was trying to as best I could. I don't know if you were, Quinton, or you were just too overwhelmed by Rome, but some stuff actually happened in Canada. How about you tell us what are some of the stories that we covered this week, Luke?
For sure, yeah. Had to keep the finger on the pulse here locally, but it was my pleasure, and I'm glad I was able to while you guys were enjoying some time there and getting some stories filed from across the way. But yeah, we had some interesting things in the paper this week for sure. I think one of the biggest was on our page 3 of this week's story by our own Anna Farrow, who looked into the pro-life group RightNow and sort of an expose or an undercover story that they had launched on their website for a Toronto abortion clinic, actually. It was a very emotional, very hard-hitting story. Our publisher, Peter Stocklin, was someone that actually had recommended that Anna take a look into it, I believe. And the full story is online. You can read it on the Catholic Register website, of course. But essentially, it was an undercover video sting that a woman had done. I believe her name was Elisa Golob.
Yes.
Yeah, and she had gone into different abortion clinics. I believe the first video that she released were ones here in Toronto, where she was recording. She wasn't letting the clinic know that she was recording, and she had actually captured some really just disheartening and just shocking things that go on behind the scenes in these different clinics. And in contrast, she said that she was also going to, normal clinics and getting ultrasounds and hearing, positive news about the pregnancy during the same time that these clinics were offering, recommendations on late-term abortions. So these videos have hit the RightNow website. I believe another one just launched that was dealing with her experience in Montreal instead of Toronto. But it just goes to show some things that are going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. It's a really fascinating read, and I recommend any of our listeners to go check that out on thecatholicregister.org.
Well, Alyssa, I guess, is she's visibly pregnant in these videos, 5 months, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, being offered, said, well, here at this clinic, we won't do the abortion, but at the hospital just around the corner, sort of thing, they'll do it for you. And we've been told all along that that is just not the way it is. It's not true, never has been true, never will be true. And yet we've got the proofs in the pudding. And good on Alyssa for showing this. So I know, Quinton, you've conversed with Alyssa in the past. Do you have anything to say about this?
Well, I think it's very commendable that she's done this because, I mean, unfortunately, all so many Canadians know is that, since that Morgentaler decision in 1988, we know that there is almost just really no restrictions on abortions here, but we know so little about the dynamics, the conversations that are being had, and just how there are so much, how much and frequency that these late terms abortions are offered. Our system is shrouded in mystery and ambiguity. So I just think it's very important that she, really was able to kind of pierce that, kind of that cone of silence, and that really get a little bit more of a semblance of truth. We need to know more about the particularities about how our system operates, and we just don't really have that transparency here in our country. And I think it's a very good piece of a public service that she did here. And I think, given the success, maybe this type of more undercover journalism, we maybe need to see a little bit more of a revitalization of that on a host of other cultural issues north of the border in Canada.
It is, well, I hate to say it, but is it worth it? Will it make a difference? And there's always hope it will, but it just seems, when it comes to the abortion question, for so many people, it's just a done deal. And it's like, leave me alone. Leave me alone. It's done. It's taken care of. They can have one. And it's a bit of a shame, but let's hope that, things like this are going to help, as you said, Quinton.
Well, I suppose the one thing that we really have to hope is that if somebody, watches Alyssa's video that was maybe in a decision of, well, maybe should I have an abortion? Like, what's the system like? Maybe kind of seeing this journalism could really push them towards a decision of life, rather. So, I mean, like, you never know what saving one life or safeguarding one life could do, and what that person could go on to achieve. So even if it just saves a few lives, I'd like to think that it'll be an ultimate good from what RightNow is able to accomplish in the series. I mean, that's our hopes, and that's what we got to pray about.
Yes. And we go from the Defenders of Life to a story that Luke did this week on the Defenders of Land. You spoke to a nun from down in the Amazon. Tell us your piece there.
Absolutely. This was a really enjoyable interview, one of the most enjoyable I've had in a long time, actually. So I was able to speak with Sister Laura Manso. She's an indigenous Franciscan nun from Brazil. She spent most of her life, at least the past 20 plus years, defending Amazon communities against things like illegal logging, mining, land grabbing, different, extractive industries. I think the first thing I wanted to say is just there's a sense you get when you speak to someone who their life's work is all sort of in one area. Just the passion and the emotion that comes out of their words when they're speaking about their work is so identifiable. I'm sure Quinton's dealt with this as a reporter as well. It's one thing to talk to someone who's in a specific role, but to talk to someone who really has put their life work all in one basket, so to speak, is always a pleasure. So I spoke with her. She's going to be the face of the Canadian Jesuit International's Women at the Heart of Justice campaign. Essentially, what that campaign is doing is shining a light on women who are on the front lines, protecting things like land, water, life itself, really. So she's in Canada now. She's touring Canada with the Canadian Jesuits International. She's been speaking in different parishes, schools, and she even recently took about 100 students up to Parliament Hill in Ottawa for a lecture there about extractive industries and things of that sort. It was a really eye-opening talk just to hear about her work throughout her life, what it's meant to her, what the state of the Amazon is currently, and what she's hoping really like she can share that message and these people's missions on the front line, especially these women on the front line in the Amazon here in Canada. So she was really passionate about that. She's continuing sort of her tour with some other events here in Canada. Again, all that information's in the full article on the catholicregister.org. But yeah, just an amazing talk with her. And she left with a great quote that I wanted to share. She said, "We should be seeds, not stones. When you throw a stone, it just kind of lays there. But when you throw a seed, it sprouts and it's planted where it lands." So she kind of related that to her mission here in Canada. You know, she's done the frontline work. She's helped those on the front line. Now I think she's finding some real passion in sharing that work across the world. And Canada was just her most recent stop. So it was a great interview. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, we thank you for taking over things so much. Well, along with Peter, our publisher emeritus, who stepped back into the fold to take over while I was away too. So thanks to Peter, and thanks to you guys for doing this with me today. So that brings this episode to a close. We'd like to thank all of you out there listening for joining us, and we hope you can join us again next time for Registered. Meanwhile, for all your Catholic news, be sure to stay informed at catholicregister.org. And again, a special shout out to Connaissance Travel and Tours for making this podcast possible. Connaissance is your trusted Catholic-owned and operated Canadian expert in transformative pilgrimage tours. Visit connaissancetravel.com. Thanks again, everyone.